Alright everyone, welcome back to The Letter. So right now we're currently up to the point where after the incident with Isabella, we're now seeing things from Becca's perspective, and currently it's getting interesting. That's all I'll say at the moment, guys. So with that said, I hope you continue to enjoy watching, and let's keep it rolling. Alright everyone, we're back.
Just please, can we give this whole thing a rest for now?
She nods, and that is the end of it. We spend the rest of the trip back to Salem Well in silence. All thoughts of an overactive imagination playing tricks on a flu-addled mind, and of smiles never meant for my eyes abandoned, if only for a brief moment. It begins routinely enough. Immediately after I read the news this morning, I called her. Offered to treat her to a free dinner to help take her mind off things, because knowing her, this might turn into another episode where she'll lock herself up in her room. It doesn't happen frequently, she's grown sensible that much at least, but I might as well prevent it before we go down that road. The last time it did, less than 5 years ago, after the incident at Devlin Court, it took Ashton of all people to coax her out of her sulk. She isn't the one responsible for Miss Cooper's death, but this will weigh on her, regardless. After all, the woman was her mentor. It was only for a brief period years ago, and they never worked together again after, but she still feels like she owes the woman a lot up to this day. To my relief, she agreed, even promised she'll meet me at St. Goretti's right after my classes. Though it is a bit odd of her to ask me to stay safe before suddenly cutting off our talk, everything's going swimmingly. Which isn't part of the plan, is her failing to turn up, leaving me waiting for hours.
Where the bloody hell is she?
4 hours from the time we agreed on, and still counting. Yes, I received not a single call or text from her. This after I took the courtesy and effort of sending her a message telling her where I'm heading to and when I have to leave to school. She could have done that too, at least, and saved me the trouble of waiting.
Oh, she can be such a child sometimes. I swear, if she locked herself up in that room, she's not going to hear the end of this.
Glancing at my watch only stirs up my temper further. Almost closing time now. With the exception of a few still in line for some late night coffee and snack, or those simply finishing their food, the small crowd inside has started to thin out. Half of the normally bustling place is now empty, and the speakers have stopped playing music seconds ago. Still, I wish they kept it going longer for a few more minutes. I can do with some relaxing music right now. Especially with the pitying looks the manager and the one manning the cashier are giving me once I hit my second hour of waiting here. The former even offered me another cup for free after I drank through my second one earlier. Naturally, I appreciate the gesture. The woman has been nothing but kind to us the times Isabella and I happen to catch her here. This time, however, they probably think my date stood me up or something, even if the reality falls far from it. Extremely far. Honestly, this is more like waiting for your child after school if there's any comparison to make. Although if it were Ashton, if we ever do go on a date, I doubt he'd ever do this. He may be an embarrassing friend to have for Zachary and Isabella, and has his odd moments, but he's definitely a reliable guy. Probably the only one I've ever had the chance of knowing this long, except for Zachary.
If he won't make it, I'm sure he'll at least have the decency to inform me beforehand.
Not that I'll ever have the courage to ask him, or anything of that sort happening anytime soon. I haven't even forgotten my poor attempt at a confession back in secondary. I wrote a short letter for him only for it to end up unread and hidden away someplace. I already lost it. In fact, after I moved out from home, along with that diary I used to religiously write on. But of all that's irrelevant and wholly different matter from this. Besides, it's getting late. It's already quite obvious Isabella has no plans of ever showing up tonight, and if she thinks she's getting away from pulling such a stunt on me, she's got another thing coming for her. When I called her this morning, I genuinely believe she's better than the childish part of her. But this simply proves things otherwise, doesn't it? She should be thankful. It's only because of my own stubbornness and good faith in her that I stayed here beyond the bounds of what my own patience allows me.
And look where that got me.
I might as well leave now too. Considering the loud blaring of sirens passing by outside, getting home tonight might take longer. Probably an accident. They rarely happen here in Luxburn, but not entirely unheard of. Most of the time, it just results in heavy traffic and a few roads nearby being temporarily closed off. Judging from the direction the police mobile is headed to, and from where an ambulance came from earlier, it's in the same route I take.
Joy of joys.
Without delaying, I gather my things back in my bag, shoot a quick thanks at the cafe's personnel for allowing me to stay this long, and hastily leave the place. Hopefully I'm not too late and the side streets aren't too congested yet. However, no 2 steps out, my mobile rings all of a sudden, effectively stopping me in my tracks. I answer without checking the screen, fully expecting to hear Isabella's string of apologies and excuses. A series of reprimands is already at the tip of my tongue. Friends or not, what she did is simply unacceptable. She needs to learn. She's 26 for goodness sake.
Isabella! I've been waiting for hours! Where the bloody fucking hell are you? We agreed on a time, didn't we? This isn't funny, you know?
But the one that responds on the other end isn't her voice. This one is deeper, almost out of breath, and talks with a bit of a hurried note.
Rebecca, it's me.
Oh, Ashton! Ash! Why are you calling me so suddenly? Do you need...
Where are you right now? Salem Well?
No, but I'm about to head home. I was supposed to meet with Isabella after school. She never showed up, though. Why?
Ashton doesn't immediately answer, however. In place of his reply, I find myself focusing instead on the noise coming from his side. People shouting orders from afar, a few curses flying off and about, and someone yelling at another poor bloke. There's also the low murmur of what appears to be a small group of people around him. Farther back, if I strain my ears, is the din of car horns and vehicles driving past. He must have been assigned to another case, called to another crime scene, in the middle of the night at that. He'll probably end up spending time there until the investigation lasts, likely until tomorrow, without even getting any shut-eye or a short rest. My lips press tight at that, but I don't say anything. Any attempts to call him out on it before has resulted in an argument. The best I can do at the minute is keep those opinions to myself, no matter how much I disapprove of it, even if I'm not the only one who shares the same opinion. Even Zachary and Isabella have something to say about it. I'm simply the most vocal out of the 3 of us. That aside, none of the dealers explain why he's calling me in the middle of his work.
Ash, are you still there? I'll be home soon. If this'll take time, just call my landline number. Give me about half an hour. I should be able to find a quicker route home, hopefully.
No, Becca, don't go home yet.
It's going to get late if I don't leave now, Ash. There seems to have been an accident along the route I take, too. I'm not sure, but I saw a couple of police mobiles rushing past a few minutes ago. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, do you?
Becca, about that. I need you to get yourself to the hospital.
Hospital? Right now? Why?
A hollow feeling suddenly creeps down to my stomach despite having eaten dinner mere minutes ago. Ashton's hesitation doesn't help either. Whatever his reasons for calling, it can only be taken as an unpleasant based solely on his tone.
Ash, is there a problem? Wait, it isn't you, is it? Did you get hurt or something? I told you to never make a joke about that.
If it was him, he's really chill about it.
Please tell me this isn't one of those...
It's not for me. Calm down, Becca.
Well, why the sudden need for a hospital visit then? I sure as hell am not sick. Who's it for?
Silence again. If this dilly-dallying is simply his reluctance or he's just carefully measuring the weight of his next words, I can't tell. For all his good looks, he can be brutally blunt even without putting a concerted effort on it. Within our small circle, unless we really have no other choice, no one ever trusts him with the task of delivering the bad news. And this is one, isn't it? Who put him up to this? The fact that he's dragging it out like this only increases my apprehension.
Ashton, if you're just going to hum and haw for the next 5 minutes, we're better off...
It's Isabella.
Come again?
Isabella. Scaredy cat. She's... Okay, listen up. You didn't hear this from me, and you're not the one who should have heard it first, but someone has to be there with her, and I can't.
Hold on. What exactly happened? I was just talking to her this morning. Now you're telling me she somehow ended up in a hospital?
Yeah, that accident you mentioned earlier. It's...
Bloody hell, Ashton, out with it!
Just a few hours ago, a car ran her over while she was crossing the street. I can't give the details yet. We're still checking on the cams, but the driver fled afterwards. She was left bleeding in the road.
All at once, as though the wind has been knocked out of me and remembering how to breathe becomes a whole different endeavor altogether. My hand makes its way over my mouth as I fight the tremors from gradually sweeping over me. Little by little, the memories of the last few hours rushed back to me. Her asking me to keep myself safe, my calls going unanswered for a long period, and the passing wails of an ambulance.
She was still breathing when the paramedics arrived. But I won't lie. Her condition's critical. Concussion, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. They said she lost so much blood, and it'll be a miracle if she makes it through the night. Damn it, when I find the bastard who did this.
What about Zach? Zachary, does he know already? Shouldn't we tell him about this too?
No, not yet. Don't tell him anything yet. Let's just keep the circle small for now. I don't want to alarm him. I'll tell him myself tomorrow, but I need you to hurry to the hospital. Can you do that for me? You're the only one I can trust with this right now.
What the heck is that about? Zach is trustworthy too?
Yeah, I'll be there. No problem. Don't worry about it.
Alright, okay. That's one problem off the list. Thanks, Becca. I'll keep you updated with how things are on my side. I need to go.
He ends the call abruptly without so much as a goodbye or a single reassurance everything would be okay. He doesn't know. None of us knows, and we can only hope amidst the fading of sirens in the distance like the very life quickly slipping away in front of us. When my body finally moves, despite trembling hands and knees threatening to buckle at any time, it is only the single-minded desperation to reach her that pushes me. Please. Please hang in there. The whole ward is almost too quiet when I arrive. No paramedics and nurses zooming past, no doctors in scrubs blaring out orders, or even patients moaning and whimpering in the triaging area. I almost couldn't pronounce that word. She's already been taken to the trauma room according to the overhead announcements.
Attention please. Adult Tier 1 trauma alert. Please respond to the trauma center, shock room 4.
Could that guy sound any more dead on the speaker? None of this is what I'm expecting. The lack of chaos. With the air so calm and unstirring in spite of what's taking place beyond this waiting room, so unlike what they often depict in the telly. Although it would be foolish of me to believe any of those shows. There may be some degree of accuracy in it, true, but it's all often done for the sake of entertainment and stirring up people's emotions. Yet, despite fully knowing that, I still crave for the noise, the commotion, the worried voices, or even the shouting. Anything. Whatever that would temporarily take the edge off my nerves. Instead, much like everything today, all I get to have when a trauma nurse finally shows up is an impassive declaration of, "She's in a critical condition, ma'am." Nothing I've not yet heard from Ashton before. He doesn't spare me another word. Not even a single explanation of what they're doing to Isabella. In the next minute, I'm being entrusted with her belongings, everything now smeared and reeking of fresh blood. Wait, if the nurse saw that letter, then isn't she also in trouble? Afterwards, it's back to that silence again, longer this time. With only glass doors, occasional whizzing, as well as the nearly wooden voice over the hospital's intercom for company.
Paging Dr. Nicholas Vogel to Lord William Ward. Shock room 4. Please report to Trauma Center Shock room 4 stat.
This guy sounds so dulled out, man.
Dr. Vogel, please.
But who am I to demand for more when in some part of this bloody emergency ward, Isabella's fighting for her life? In the end, no matter what my complaints are, what I want to hear or see, they're all useless here. I'm useless here.
Dr. Vogel, please report to the Trauma Center Shock room 4 stat.
All I can do is sit down and wait, go through every small motions to keep myself occupied, prevent my mind from thinking of every ugly scenario this might lead to. Because as stubborn, annoying, or childish as I regard her time and again, I
don't want to lose a friend to this.
Not in this manner. And it's the thought I hold firmly to. As the hours go by, as the halls grow quieter, and everything around me turns dimmer, bleaker, it's what I cling on. Along with a small plea at the heart of it. A muttered prayer, desperate and earnest all at once.
I've never been the religious kind. I don't think I ever will identify as one. But if there's some other force, someone out there who can hear, please listen to me just this once.
Please don't take her away. Before long, sleep claims me, fraught with lasting images of blood and a single voice in a vain struggle with death. Thus the waiting game begins. The following morning arrives like any other day before it, bright and clear. As if the world hasn't completely tilted out of focus the night before, like nothing ever happened. It's a good day, by common standards, a bit one I can't fully appreciate. Maybe I would have it if it's the hospital's glaring fluorescence that greeted me first, or my eyes still aren't rough with sleep, or I've chosen a more comfortable place to doze off. Even better if I've gotten a more pleasant news than what I received after waiting for hours on end. But times like this, you simply take what you can get. It could have been worse. We could have easily lost her. The doctors and nurses said so. But by some bullheaded miracle, we didn't. What do you know? She's actually found some use for her stubbornness. If she survives this, it seems this will be the last time I'll rail on her about that. It might have saved her after all. They had to induce coma, yes. It may not be what we wanted, but it sure as hell isn't the end for her, and that's enough. That's good enough. We can work from there. At least like this, we know in her own little way, Isabel's still fighting and hoping isn't such a futile thing for us. Zachary thinks so. Unlike me, he never falters. Not even once since he arrived and joined me in my vigil. Even when the uncertainty starts to have its sway on me, all he has for me are reassurances.
You did the right thing, Rebecca.
You don't know that. What if she doesn't want this? Do you see all of these? Wires and tubes and bandages everywhere. She's barely herself, clinging to dear life as it is. She can't even hear us. Doesn't even know there are people here worried sick for her.
The point is she's still here. Don't beat yourself up over what ifs. This ain't over for her, aight? I've seen people recover from even worse. Have some faith in her.
I do have faith in her.
You know what? I think this is just a lack of sleep talking. You been here since when? Last night? Go get some rest, Miss Gales.
But Isabella's...
I'll take care of her, don't you worry. We can do shifts if you want, but go home first. We'll talk about that later when you ain't looking like you're about to fall apart. If you keep going like this, you're the one who'll end up here next.
I don't know if it's optimism in his tone that did it, but his words, regardless of the mood around us, some of the exhaustion finally lifts, enough for a soft chuckle to slip out from me. How odd. Out of all people, Zachary's the last person I ever expect to get a pick-me-up from. After all, we've never been particularly close. At best, we're good friends, we talk, we laugh, when the situation calls for it, but, admittedly, none of those will ever occur if Ashton or Isabella aren't there. It's not entirely uncomfortable, but awkward nevertheless. We simply can't seem to find something to talk about without those two to drive the conversation. Still, here he is, in spite of the gap or whatever dark cloud hanging above his head lately. I can't possibly reject his offer knowing that, can I?
This feels like a conversation I had with Isabella a few days ago. I said the exact same thing to her.
Then maybe it's a sign you should rest. Let me take over from now.
Maybe. But I'll keep that in mind. Are you sure you'll be fine alone? I'll come back this evening. So if you need anything picked up, I can get it for you.
Nah, no problem on that front. Besides, if I do need something, my apartment's just a few blocks away. Skip and a hop, that's all I need. Focus on getting some sleep. Let me take care of this for a few hours. Do it for everyone's sake,
Will do. Thanks, Zachary. If something changes with her, promise me you'll call.
You'll be the first one to know, ma'am. Well, if it comes to that. I hope the news I bring will be better than the one we got this morning. Crazy thing having to wake up to this.
I hope so too. I'll see you later.
I gave him a smile before leaving. Frankly, it's a weak and half-hearted attempt at encouragement, and whether it's intended to be for me or him, I don't linger over it. At the end of the day, we both need any little strength we can muster and extend between us, in whatever form this may choose to come. The door closes behind me with a soft click at last, muffling the ceaseless beeping from the machines. But I know this isn't the last time I'll be hearing those. A wholly different atmosphere meets me when I step out of the hallway. Sterile, placid, along with this sharp, bitter air dangling oppressively above my head as I make my way out of the ward. It stands at stark contrast to the room I came from only seconds ago. With the whole place like this, Zachary's passing remark about Isabella years ago rings truer. He's right. There has always been this certain warmth she carries around her wherever she goes. The sunny, sprightly kind reminds you a little of home and those childhood memories so often forgotten. Something I both envy and ignore in her, to the point of taking it for granted. But in spite of the circumstances she's trapped in now, it remains with her in that room. And leaving it like a douse of cold water. Every thought, every responsibility, every worry I've set aside last night returns to me tenfold. Someone has to inform BRC. Then there's also her aunt who works in another county. She needs to know as well. Her family in the Philippines too. And though he never asks for it, I'm sure Ashton will also appreciate any news on her condition.
Bloody hell. This is supposed to be easy.
Call and deliver the news, as simple as that. Offer small soothing words if need be, no matter how meaningless or how flat they fall in the other's ears. Yet my hand wavers. The moment I pull my phone out, my whole body freezes. I stop in my tracks while my thumb hovers uselessly over the names on the screen. Her aunt, her mom, Ashton. The letters on it flicker brightly, almost accusingly at my stalling. How would they react? How would her family feel hearing this from someone they've never even met before? How do I tell them? What do I say? There are a million ways this can go, none of them pleasant, all of them out of my control.
But I can't simply pawn this off on someone else, can I?
Even before I agreed to be her emergency contact, I've always known the responsibilities that come with being named one. At a young age, I already did, and Isabella's trust goes as far as to put me in that list. If that doesn't say what she thinks of this little friendship, I don't know what else will. And now, I balk at it.
That simply isn't how the Scotswoman in my blood does things.
So before I lose this sudden resolve or stumble back into another cycle of negative thoughts, I press down on the call button. Ashton first. I'll think about how I'll deal with the others later. Although I still have no clue how I'll open the topic, the news is still a far cry from a good one. But with him, I won't have to worry how to best phrase it. Word choice and turn of phrase notwithstanding, ultimately this will all just sound like an update on the situation for him. When he finally answers, however, a certain tightness in his voice makes me pause. Hoarser, rougher than I remember, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out he hasn't gotten any sleep yet.
Becca? Didn't I tell you not to call around this hour unless it's urgent?
I remember, sorry. Don't worry, this'll be quick. It isn't urgent, but I thought you should... You deserve to know about this as soon as possible.
Can it wait? At least until lunch?
It can, but I'm about to...
Rebecca, I'm in the middle of something right now. I can't really talk over the phone. I'll just call you back.
The shuffling of papers follows his dismissive note. He hasn't dropped the call yet, but his impatience and inattentiveness are clear. There's no need to guess, I can almost see it. The small scowl over his features, the way he reaches up with the hand to pinch the bridge of his nose when he can't figure something out. His quick, sharp movements while he checks and reads through everything with an enormous focus. Generally, I'd ignore it. I called him for an entirely different reason. Even so, this sudden nonchalance irks. Maybe it has to do with his own exhaustion. Without a doubt, he's been at this since the call last night. The part I understand. Still, would it hurt him to pause and ask for a minute? Do I always have to spell it out for him? Okay, we already know. We know the deal. I could ask how the investigation's going, or the obvious. Aren't you gonna ask about it? And we know he doesn't want to because he's scared about the answer, but at the very least we know she's still okay. I don't know what's gonna raise his affection or friendship level, because I think either or is gonna either do it or not. I guess we'll go with either or, man. It spills out from my mouth before I can think on it twice or pick a better set of words, in a low voice without the anger but brimming with a quiet accusation. Later I'll blame it all on this fatigue, but in the minute I simply let everything loose. More for his sake than mine.
Aren't you even going to ask about her? How she's doing?
The rustling from his side abruptly stops. All of a sudden, a silence sweeps over him, but this is neither him mulling over how to best articulate his answer nor waiting for me to say more. This is how he evades, how he skirts around truths he's not ready to brave. A final defense of sorts and a quick rebuilding of walls coming apart at the seams. Though his pause doesn't really last long enough to hold, and when he regains his bearings and shuffling returns with it, more urgent, stiffer than his actions earlier. A heavy exhale follows at its heels. My words have been thoughtfully ignored before he even responds.
I don't have time to worry about other things right now.
See, that almost sounded cold, but I get it.
Ashton, your friend is in the hospital, not some random stranger.
You think I don't know that? I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it when they hauled her up in that ambulance last night. I'm pretty sure I'm the last person you should be telling that to.
Look, I know you couldn't give a shite about people outside of this little circle of yours, but this is someone you've known for years.
And your point is?
My point is, you could have spared a little of your precious detective time to check on us, instead of brushing us off at the first chance you get. Even Zachary went all the way here when he could have just called.
Rebecca, you know I can't be there while I'm trying to figure out what happened here. I can't just leave in the middle of things. I told you that last night.
At least try to show some concern.
I am concerned!
Well, you certainly don't sound like it.
How am I supposed to sound then? Royally pissed? In tears? Rebecca, if you're expecting me to cry over this, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Why don't you try a little harder than that? Maybe then it'll be easier to believe you.
Oh, what do you think I'm doing? Why do you think I'm still out here? Trying to find the godforsaken asshole who did that to her? That isn't concern to you?
I don't know, you tell me. Better yet, why don't you tell that to Isabella if she ever wakes up?
I don't bother waiting if he'll reply to that. A swift swipe of my thumb over the mobile screen brings a curt end to the conversation, if you can still call it one. But I know him. He may not be the type to hang up on anyone once a discussion goes sour or turns against his favor, but he'll end up dragging this out until every argument has been said. We both will. We're both headstrong like that. Besides, there's really no point in bickering further. I've already said what I wanted to say. Although with how tactfully phrased it was, I don't see any hope of it having an effect on him ever showing up here. I don't expect him to. It'll be just Zachary and I on this until he pulls that stick out of his behind. Coward. Alright, let me check the relationship right now. I knew that was going to lower it. It was either or, man. Like, I could pick the first or second options. I still feel like I wouldn't have won that. Okay, well. If I have enough mental capacity to take this on right now, I'll gladly do so. Just to get everything over with. But the way things are, and I am now, I'll only end up doing more harm than good, both to myself and those around me. Besides, the more pressing matter is getting out of this place. Because when I look up from my phone and finally take in my surroundings, only an unfamiliar hallway greets me. Brightly lit as any other corridor here, though oddly void of people and the usual hospital clamor. No voices announcing over the intercoms, no beeping from machines inside the rooms, not even a single patient waiting on the occasional doctor or nurse on their rounds. Oh, it's never good when it's like cleared out like this. I have a feeling we're about to get, for lack of a better word, bothered. I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere while I'm busy worrying about those phone calls earlier. That ought to teach me something.
Of all the places to get lost at.
I've never thought much of hospitals before. They're a necessity. Walking alone in a deserted area inside one, however, with the walls coming off too white, too clean in my eyes, and perhaps even too dull, I can't help but feel a bit queasy about it. A heavy, unsettling feeling lands on my stomach. It's a bit unnerving, but far more agreeable than the sensation of being watched I've been enduring these past few days. And I know I shouldn't do this here, but...
Hello? Anyone here?
Aw, you never should do that, ever. Faint footsteps and a murmur of voices echo from somewhere. Still, no one responds to my call. It merely bounces off the walls before dwindling until all I have for company is the sound of my footsteps. Admittedly, this is a little disconcerting. But for now, I let the distant noises guide me as I walk along the empty corridor, looking for that exit that will lead me back to the main lobby or any one I can ask for directions. A good minute passes, and another. I'm about to turn around and retrace my steps instead when... Okay, guys, I'm gonna end it here for today. After hearing this, I already know. I'd rather be more refreshed after this. So, thank you for watching, and until the next one.